Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Connecticut at your service. My name is Carmen Nieves, and I am your host. And we come to you each Tuesday at 6:30 at Soundview Community Media TV, where we interview business owners with a purpose. And our aim is to educate, engage, and help people in the community see our business owners for more than just what they do for business, but really about how they empower others to grow. I can express to you, just like I do every week, my guest today is Crystal Engram, and she is the managing member of All About Business LLC, a human resource consulting firm that provides interim support and coaching for businesses that do not have an HR department. I am proudly, she is a friend, a community leader, a trusted professional with over 20 years experience with a master's in experience in human services, in human resources, sorry about that. She has worked with companies with as many as employees as 200 or just one, and with her award-winning leadership. She serves her community as the liaison and resource in various volunteer roles in the community and on a statewide level. I know that she wouldn't say this herself, so I had to make sure that I read it. She is the chair of the Bridgeport Chamber, and she is the chair of the year awarded by the Bridgeport Regional Business Council. She is a past recipient of the Rosa Parks Leadership and Diversity Award and Mentor of the Year Award. She is the Rotary International District Trainer. She's the Women's Mentoring Network Mentor of the Year. She's chair of the Board of Career Resources, Horizons Bridgeport Mentor, Bridgeport Public Education Fund member, and on and on and on with affiliations. You can take down her picture. What's most important, Crystal, for me in having you here is that your mission has always been about empowering communities.
Absolutely.
By helping to build solutions, by developing leaders, and influence by educating and invigorating and encouraging people to just be their best. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here today. I know you weren't going to read this whole thing of the many things you do, so I had to blow up your spot because I needed people to just understand what a wealth of information you are. Now, you've got a career of over 20 years in the human resource field. Tell me, what are you finding out in the field that's affecting small businesses today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And to answer your question, what I'm finding the trend for businesses is finding the right employee, finding the employee that has the skills to match the job, and retaining employees. That's the number one trend right now. I would say that the trend can vary from business to business.
Because they're all different, right?
Yes.
There's no one cookie cutter type business.
And industries are changing.
You know, we pulled up some of the industry data that you had presented us with, so I wanted to share that with our viewers. Could you mention some of those?
Okay, so the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that the overall employment of HR specialists will grow. So that's me. That's what I do. I'm an HR specialist. In my consulting firm, we help businesses deal with these types of statistics. So in a nutshell, there is a need for people like me. There's a need for All About Business. According to the Connecticut Business Industry Association, in 2022, 85% of employers struggled finding and retaining employees, as I said. And according to LinkedIn, 54% of small businesses, they decide to handle HR matters without trained HR, which is a problem. Because when they're not familiar with the laws and updates to the laws, and they handle things sometimes with emotion, it gets businesses into a lot of legal trouble, and that leads to legal ramifications. So, for example, mishandling in the hiring process from the beginning can cost thousands of dollars as you move forward.
You know, I pulled up some statistics from the small business statistics that was online, and it said that 33.2 million small businesses in the U.S. So, and you know, we talked about, you said no business is small business.
Correct.
But what constitutes, when we're talking about small business, how are we cataloged? Because I catalog myself differently, but what are you seeing as when people say I'm a small business? What does that usually mean?
So like I said, no business is small business, because one of the reasons I would say that is because you can be a business of two. I'll use two, for example. And if something goes awry with your business agreement, even partnership, that can lead to serious consequences legally, which often is attached, a cost is attached to a legal mistake. So no business is small when it comes to human resources.
It also said that when making business decisions, the biggest issue, and it said that at 58%, is that small business owners are starting from scratch. So, and I'll use myself as an example, right? So I've got a small business and I really want to start hiring people. And we've had this discussion before. But some of the things that I don't know what you're seeing out there in the field, because you're in the trenches with some of these small businesses that just want to get ahead. And, you know, the biggest thing, you know, as a small business, sometimes we don't pay ourselves. But anybody working for you's got to get paid.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I've seen issues like that, even though you want to, but you're not making enough money to pay somebody. What are the logistics around hiring? Is somebody a consultant? Is somebody like somebody that needs to be on your payroll? What is the differentiating factor on that?
That all depends on your business. And so I suggest that before starting your business, you know what type of help you need. How many people do you need to do that job? What kind of insurance do you need to cover certain things like workers' comp, liability insurance, general officers' liability insurance? So my main advice would be to do some upfront homework. I would suggest that anyone who has a business do the upfront work before you hire people, knowing what it is you need and how you want to get that accomplished.
I will tell you, and I've spoken to some small businesses, and I'm sure you have too. Sometimes we got this idea, we don't know where we're going with it, right? So it also talks about that that 33, those million of businesses that I talked about, that 3.7 million of those businesses have less than 10 employees. So I like how you referenced that it could be two. I mean, and we were talking about this before the show. My husband's my number one employee that doesn't get paid because I have him. I need you to help me do this, or I need you to help me do that. So a lot of businesses are started by friends, family members. And you mentioned something earlier. I would love for you to re-reference that. Agreements. Is that like a form, like you go to an attorney for that? Like what do you do?
That's something that you can research on your own. And if you're dealing with family, some people just assume that you don't need an agreement. But a business relationship is different than a family relationship. So it depends what the dynamics are, what type of agreement that you'll need, because I wouldn't imagine that you'd have an agreement with your husband, like a formal agreement.
It depends. We are married.
I mean, you can negotiate certain things.
We do negotiate certain things. But it's like, you know, and one of the things that we were talking about before we went on air is that, you know, small businesses usually has one or two people working in it. And we expect people to work at the level that we do all day, all night, that kind of thing. And when you have somebody else, they're not trying to do all of that.
No, and it's really important that you establish a level for yourself, and whenever possible, let that person have the freedom to establish the level. They're getting the job done, but let them establish their own boundaries as long as you get what you need. that's a way to show your employee that you appreciate them, you appreciate their judgment, you trust them, and it makes for a better relationship.
I love that you kind of like said that about giving them that freedom to just do the work, and since COVID, business has changed dramatically. Like I never would have thought that, working from my kitchen table while I'm, caring for my mom. And now I'm like, how did we ever not do that? And people were doing it before, but how has the HR dynamic changed from being in person to like, how do you manage? Like, you can't really manage somebody you don't see, right? So what might be some advice? Well, what are you seeing in that shift? And then what might be some advice for businesses that might be in that?
Okay,
in that
so
position?
there still have to be boundaries. You get into people working from home, there are office setups that need to be clear. If you're working from home, there's a safety issue. I would strongly suggest the business that's making the arrangement with the employee, you have to check out the environment that they're working in. And that may very well be a visit to their home, because there's still workers' comp coverage that you'll need to provide. And I think in some cases, businesses have kind of foregone that, and that's very risky. So it's not as free as people portray it to be. It can be, but there are boundaries and liabilities, and it's just not, go home. Because if someone has an accident from home, the business could very well be responsible.
So you've been in your profession over 20 years. What made you say this is something that we need in order to support small businesses? What made you see that this is a niche, and what made you start it, and what was the idea behind All About Your Business?
Okay, so I would go back to my community relationships and being a part of the Bridgeport Regional Business Council and being a resource within that community and beyond. In having conversations with business owners, I have learned that there's a definite need. People don't know where to start. And it's a way for them, my business is a way for them to have that resource with a 24-hour intake time, which I guarantee, not that it will solve the problem in 24 hours, but you will be heard within 24 hours. The packages that I offer are customizable to their business, provide the services without fringe benefits and the overhead. And I think the best part of it goes back to relationships and collaborative partnerships, because being in the environment with all of those businesses, I'm able to be a resource and create partnerships that people normally don't think of. So I found that there's a definite need, and I like the one-on-one relationship with the business.
And every business is different. I remember you we had a conversation that a handbook is really important.
Oh,
having not only a hiring, but a separation strategy. But first, what is the I don't want to say the ramifications, or what is the responsibility of a small business? And is there a size where you must have?
The responsibility is great, and it's a handbook is a good starting point. So that's a compilation of agreements in one document, the handbook. So you can cover and customize, I go back to customizing all of the policies that suit your business. Your requirements may be different from the next person, but the handbook is a way to capture that and create agreements between the business and the employees.
Part of what's happening is that small businesses don't know the rules, right? So I'm all about like different legislation, excuse me, right now that's passing. And there's a big bill that's out there related to small businesses having to give their employees sick time. So it hasn't passed, and some companies must do it. Small businesses, you have the option to do it, and it's almost like the right thing to do. But if somebody's out and it's just you and they're getting paid and you're not, sometimes that's, what is your thought around that?
That's all, it will go back to company policy. And it can go back to the relationship that the employer has with their employees. Every employee is different, but having a company policy that you can refer to will be very helpful. I'm not sure that answered the question.
What kind of things are important to have in a policy? What are the good things to have?
The good things to
The
have in a
baseline of
policy.
things that one of the biggest things that happens, and I'm sure you will agree, is miscommunication.
Yes.
Right? So I said you could wear business casual. I didn't say you could whatever and then have your sandals from your house, your slippers from your house. So just little things
I know
like
of
that.
a company where you can't wear flip-flops because the CEO doesn't like the noise that flip-flops make. So,
okay. Listen,
every company is
company their own.
different. But going back to company policy, and sometimes people just need to be reminded. A gentle reminder can go a long way. So if you have someone, you have a company policy about attire, business attire, what have you, and you have this excellent employee that maybe, went the other way this one time, and you have a discussion. You have a discussion and gently remind the employee of what the policy is. And there should be no consequences for that. But it's when you get into the constant reminder that it takes it to another level.
And I remember using a draft that you had provided to one of my friends. And I remember how important it was, the things that you recommended. It's like simple things like, when do you get paid?
Oh,
How
that's
do
major.
you get paid, right?
That's major.
What is your work schedule? When is the place open? What are you allowed to do? How do you use your equipment? What happens in a grievance where you feel like you were wronged, right? What is your right? And it's things that I really never thought about, or even like holidays.
Okay.
Paid
you
holidays
work so
for my
much.
husband.
You work so much.
I don't
There's
have a holiday.
no
My husband's
holidays.
like, listen, you're on holiday and you're still working. I'm like, you're with me, so you don't got a holiday either. But it's things that are really important that you don't think about. And it was really making me pay attention to when I started to write it. And I did draft it, just so that I did draft it. Because you gave it to me like, give me a draft, right? You got to do the work. And I think that's when we started working together. You were like, you've got to do the work. And I think what I'm hearing in the advice you're giving is that every business is different, and you've got to do your legwork first to see what works for you.
Absolutely.
So I remember looking at that and things that I hadn't even thought about. It's like, how are you record keeping if you're not in the office?
Right.
How does somebody use their equipment? So what is your top advice, your top 3 things for, and you know what, you actually gave me some solutions, so I'm gonna put up that slide with the solutions, and I would love for you to go over those about how you solve the problem, and then I want you to give me some personal advice.
Okay, so I think if I had to prioritize, I would say, first of all, get an HR consultant like me. We're all about business. Get direction from an HR professional. Know your business and the industry. Research. So when a business doesn't have the time or doesn't have the money to hire someone permanently to do the research, we do the research, we do the evaluation, we make the recommendation to solve the problems. But from the onset, I believe it's important that the business owner know the business. And I think, as you said, there are considerations that a business owner has, and they're not thinking, not anything malicious, they're just not focused on human resource issues. We deal with the people issues. We deal with the mentoring, the training, the development. And so we take the burden off of the business, and we do it for you.
And I think it's so important. It's like you want to
You have to be in touch.
I mean, for me, I'm building a legacy business, that I want my grandchildren to run. And how does that look like? And how does my family interact with that? So it's a big lift. So you kind of want to do it right. And I think small businesses, and I'll say myself specific, I'm afraid to make a move without being certain. And in business, you're just never certain.
No, at some point you have to take a risk. But I want to go back to your point about creating a legacy and so forth. And I want to acknowledge my grandmother, who has passed on, but she was a business owner for many years, different industries. I remember certain things that she did. I was very young, but I remembered the relationships that she had with her employees. Now I know they were employees, but if I had to think back, I thought they were her friends, because she had that. It was a family type relationship. And you have to conduct yourself accordingly as a business owner. It's good to have a friendly relationship with your employees, but I think it's important to be at a level of professionalism and know your business.
I agree.
I think business owners should know each and every job and how to do it in their business.
I love that. And I think that that's been one of the challenges. So that's why grievance policies and things like that are really important. So as a small business owner...
I'm sorry, can we go back to one?
Sure.
Because you mentioned grievance policies. Since I have experience in a union environment, that's where we talk about grievances. So handling of business with that involve unions, so you have an employee handbook, you have a policy and procedure manual, you have the union contract. So
that's a triple.
Yeah. So my experience is in dealing with all of them and making sure they're not that different. It's just they're all a guide for the employee and the company.
As a small business that would be looking to potentially, first of all, how do people reach you if they just want to ask a question and say, Crystal, this is my issue, can you just hear me out and see? Like, how do they reach you?
Okay, they can reach me by email. My email address is allaboutbusinessct@gmail.com, or they can pick up the phone. I'm just 203-414-4845, and I answer every call and every email within 24 hours.
That's amazing. And, so we started to talk a little bit about grievances, and maybe that's not the right word, but what's important for someone to have in an employee file? What are the things that are important to have in there? One of the things that I didn't even think about is even if it's a friend, they should have an application with somebody's emergency contact info. I was just talking to Terry, our associate producer. I'm because I was feeling dizzy today, right? So I was you have my husband's information in your phone, right? You don't think about that, but It's something. What are the important things that a small business owner should have on file about the people who might be their employee?
In the file, because there are different files, number one, there's a medical file, and you don't put medical in a personnel file.
Okay.
There are different files. An employer should not keep separate files on their employees. So a personnel file should contain basic information, an application, as you said.
Application,
Resume, right. Information to show what made you make the decision to bring this person on board. Background check information, in some businesses, it should be kept separate. It depends who has access to the file. But basically, any information you relied on to make that decision. I would not advise you to include the verifications of previous employment. And one of the reasons why is because the employee has the right to review their file. And you may not want the employee to see the verification from his previous employer.
Oh, like what they said?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That may not work out so well.
So do you keep that in a separate file?
Separate file.
Okay. I have to tell, there's so many things that you can, I had heard about health. That I knew.
Yes, that's
you
separate.
know, I know that at my job, they make you sign like the handbook and then a copy of the signed handbook.
Yes.
So you can't say you didn't know.
Any
now you know.
document that verifies you received the policy. Yes, that's very, very helpful. I know of a company, well, I would suggest to any company that they use one sheet whenever possible, or two, that lists all of the policies the employee signed for. So that, and it maybe even a separate sheet. I actually have suggested two sheets, one specifically for the handbook, and then the other sheet noting all of the policies that they signed for.
Oh,
And
like
it works,
initial it or
it works
something?
like a charm.
Oh.
Yeah. If you have to go to different hearings, yeah, that's your proof that the employee got it.
So Crystal, we're wrapping up. So tell me, what's next for your business and what's next for you? And thank you so much for all your advice.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
It went by fast, right?
It went by very fast. I have so much more to say.
I know.
But
they have to call you
they
to
have
get all the
call
good
me,
stuff.
Yes. What's next for my business? I'd say getting the word out. I am here to help the community and help the businesses in our community in Fairfield County. So basically getting the word out and letting businesses know you're not alone. I'm here to help. All About Business is here to help you with all of your business needs.
Oh, Crystal, thank you so much for coming. So we've had Crystal Engram, who's the managing member for All About Business. And we want to thank you for coming. Here's her contact information that we just shared for individuals that have a small business, well,
You keep
any
saying
size business.
small business.
I know.
So-
no business is small business, right?
Just remember, I want them to remember, we have the solution before you have the problem.
I love that. And when you can't afford your own, here's a great way to kind of do that. So two things I want to thank everyone again for tuning in another week. You may have noticed that we're not on public access today and we're not on Soundview TV. That's because I have mentioned to you before that we are working on a legislative bill that has to do with public access and the cost sharing. So we need individuals. If you love public access, if you want to support programs like Connecticut at Your Service, it's really important that you look on, get the bill, sign off on the bill so you'll see that there is a blackout right now. So you're going to see previous shows with a call to action on the public access station. We want you to support public access and remember that they take three important pieces: government, education, and then the voice of the people, which is what Connecticut at Your Service is, where we feature individuals that make a difference here in our state. So we thank you again, and we'll see you next week here on Connecticut at Your Service.